Hello, America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck program and to The Blaze. This is the network that you are building. We're live in our studios in Midtown Manhattan, and we have a lot to cover today. Before we get to the latest on the Saudi national that we have to brief you on, we have some new news for you. This is fantastic, it really is. Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the DHS, says he's a lone wolf. No one saw this coming, right? Well, we learned today that he indeed is on the Terrorist Identity Data Mart environment. That's the TIDE list. This is a highly classified central database of people the U.S. government views as potential terrorists. He was on that list. Now, he may not have been active or viewed as an active threat, but how in the world did his name not pop up after the bombing? How in the world was he on that list and the FBI comes out and says, hey, can you figure out who this guy is? We have no idea. How? This, by the way, is all of the stories that people are viewing here on The Blaze. As you can see, Armed and Dangerous. This is the lead story today. This is the one that we're going to really be covering here. This is still, unfortunately, an exclusive story. It truly amazes me how incompetent, as one of our sources said today, how criminal this media really is. But we are still the lone wolf out crying in the wilderness, and I will tell you this, that when there is another terrorist activity, another terror bombing, the question will be asked, what did you know? And you will have the answer. We have a lot. The latest on the Saudi cover-up here. Janet Napolitano. Janet Napolitano, she's suddenly willing to talk about that guy that was in the hospital room. Now, perhaps she's evolving on the issue, because I know that's what the people in this administration do. They evolve, but this time, not by choice. The Blaze is holding her feet to the fire, and the Blaze is getting hotter every day. In a moment, I'm going to show you a document, one that Janet Napolitano, not really happy that they're seeing the light of day, because along with it comes information that causes a big problem for her storyline and the storyline of this administration, and it raises only more questions. First, let me take a look at what she's been spinning. She first was asked about al-Harbi, the guy, the Saudi Arabian, that they first said was a suspect, and she responded with mockery last week. Watch this.
If I might,
We're going to remove him from the scene.
I am unaware of anyone who is being deported for national security concerns at all related to Boston. I don't know where
I'm not
that
saying it's
rumor
related to
came
Boston. Is that not negligence?
I'm not going to answer that question. It is so full with misstatements and misapprehensions that it's just not worthy of an answer. There's been so much reported on this that's been wrong, I can't even begin to tell you, Congressman. We will provide you with accurate information as it becomes available.
There is so much perjury here, I can't even begin to tell you. Look at what she's doing. She knows of no one that is being deported. No one. Then it's not even worth an answer. And then we'll provide accurate information. Okay. Well, now, yesterday she was at a Senate hearing, and suddenly she is willing to try to explain. But watch her explain and ask yourself, why the sudden shift? We'll get to the shift and why it happened, but first, her response from yesterday.
With regard to the Saudi student, was he on a watch list, and if so, how did he obtain student visa?
He was not on a watch list. What happened is this student was really, when you back it out, he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was never a subject. He was never even really a person of interest. Because he was being interviewed, he was at that point put on a watch list, and then when it was quickly determined he had nothing to do with the bombing, the watch listing status was removed.
That is absolutely crazy. It's crazy. Crazy. He's not on a watch list, but because we were interviewing him, he's on a watch list. Wait a minute, which one was it? Now, she claims that he was just a guy at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is really fascinating. What she's saying here is he was never a person of interest. He was never on a watch list. He was totally innocent. He was just a guy who was at the wrong place at the wrong time. So let me ask you, Janet, did you put him on that watch list? Did you do that to everybody in the hospital? Or did you just see him and say, that's an Arab in there, we better put him on a watch list? Because that sounds to me, if you have nothing, no reason, except here's a guy who happens to be an Arab in the hospital, and you say, hey, we better put him on the no-fly list. I'd like to know, did you put anyone else in the hospital on the no-fly list while you were interviewing them? You put them on a watch list as a precaution. Was it race? What you're seeing here is clear racism at its finest and at the best. That's the best case scenario, racist. Then they quickly cleared him. Not possible. Not possible. Why would they claim that if the event file originally created for Al Harvey designated him as a 212-3B2? That's what this is. This is citizenship and immigration, terrorist activities. A 3B is you are held because you are involved in security and related grounds, terror designation, terrorist activities. Now, when you have the terrorist activities, what this means is you're not just like, hey, I watched a terrorist video. You are active. You have either committed one or you're about to. So when the Fed knows or has reasonable grounds to believe that you are engaged in terrorist activities, that's when you get 212-3B. That's it. This is not something that just pops up. You're like, hey, you know what? I'll tell you what, I don't think you're going to fly anymore. Let's put you on a 212-3B. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen when you're just being interviewed in the hospital because you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is like charging you with first-degree premeditated murder and asking for the death penalty. This is the worst thing that they can do to you, is put you as a 212-3B. That's it. This is not the no-fly list. This is something entirely different. And there has to be a panel, and you have to go and give the evidence to that panel. So how could you possibly get put onto a watch list or a no-fly list merely because you're being questioned by the feds? Answer, you don't. You don't. You need actual evidence for this to happen. Napolitano's claim is that this is all a big misunderstanding. No. Because this is coming from the Patriot Act, the reason why you have to have that panel, the reason why you have to have all of the things that get you to a 212-3B status is because they were saying we don't want to have to go to court on this. We have to act quickly. Congress wrote this so there wouldn't be an abuse of power, so no bureaucrat could just make you a terrorist. You had to have a body of evidence. This Saudi posed no threat whatsoever? Maybe it's because he was a dark-skinned male. Is that what it is, Janet? Are you afraid of people that are different than you? And then you say he's a guy who's just like everybody else. No. Because if that's true, why does the event file tell a completely different story? Tonight, we present the details of that event file for Abdul Rahman Ali Al-Harbi. We have a copy of the event file, and we will show it to you tonight. All right, America, welcome to the program. Here are 3 action steps that I want you to take with this information. This is really important because this is not just a show. This is the way we're going to have to live our life here for a while. We're going to have to go to school on Saudi Arabia, and we will try to help you do that. First one is educate yourself. I want you to read everything you can. Be very, very careful. There are really dangerous sources out there that are nothing but conspiracy sites. And I have to tell you, honestly, I have no proof of this, no evidence, but I think some of those conspiracy sites, if I were a betting man, I would put money, seeing that this was Cass Sunstein's own advice to the government, is that they have been infiltrated and they're getting wrong information to confuse and muddy the waters. Be very, very careful on what you read. Read only credible sources. Watch the program and watch The Blaze. and most important, verify everything that you can if you can. We are already, can you bring up the mosaic here for a second? We already have a story up here. You see it's number 2. Are these pictures of Michelle Obama visiting Saudi student put on the watch list last week? That story is up on the Blaze now, and there are pictures of her in the hotel, or in the hospital. She's wearing the clothes that she was wearing when she visited the hospital last week. If these are actual photos of her, that means they know he's a 2123B, and she goes and visits him in the hospital. Now, these pictures have been put out on the website, and they've been out for a few days. We have not posted them, but now they're starting to go viral because this story is catching on, not with the news media, but with you. So I asked this morning, I said, could we please just verify? For the best that we can tell, the people that we sent these out to verify that they are not doctored pictures, they believe that they are legitimate pictures of her. We've called the White House. The White House, of course, won't respond to it. And I believe the story here is we don't know. We don't know. We're waiting for a verification. But so you know, my gut says they are. Some of our experts say they are. But I'm not going to, we won't put our name on something unless we know for sure. So verify. Second, educate others. That means tweet, Facebook, blog, and get your 912 groups or any groups together and go over these things so you know. This will play a role in the future. The last one is demand answers, accountability, and call Congress and the White House. If you tweet, please use hashtag Blaze2123B. And I would ask you that you would tweet those today. Tweet some of the evidence that we're going to show you tonight. When it came to learning about progressivism, when it came to learning about the communists in the White House, you took the lead and you made a difference. Many of us didn't know even the real history of our country. We need you now to educate yourself. I need to educate myself on Saudi Arabia and their ties to the White House and the terrorism. It's been going on not just with this administration, but the last one as well. And it's a grave, grave danger to you and your family. We have to know what it is. Then I want you to share it. Again, tweet with hashtag Blaze2123B and help bring others on board. Please be careful of your credibility. Demand answers from your representatives. And that's what this letter is all about. And we'll tell you about it here in just a second. Now, let's take a look at where we stand at this hour. The administration is saying that the Saudi was not a threat. Well, then, why, on the second page after the cover sheet, which we'll show you here in a second, is Al Harbi listed as armed and dangerous? Armed and dangerous. I thought he just put it on a watch list. Now he's armed and dangerous. Why was Al Harbi admitted to this country after the special advisory option? Now, this is reserved for politicians, journalists, or VIPs. This is not just for somebody who's coming over to school. This is a VIP. This allowed him to enter our country without fully being vetted. They didn't even know who he really was. Who made that happen? Why was he treated as a VIP? Next one. Officials say he was only being deported because he was on an expired visa. That's not true. How could it be true if the event file indicates that his visa is good until November 11th, 2016? Al Harbi was also supposed to enroll at the University of Findlay, Ohio. He never did. Officials claim he applied for a transfer. If that's true, where's the paperwork? Why does the event file list him as a student at the University of Findlay in Findlay, Ohio? When there's an event file, and here's the sticky part for the administration, when somebody goes and makes the event file, this system is put on alert. And the author or authors, in this case, are notified whenever anybody tries to access or change that information. Oh, I wish somebody had the email addresses of those who tried to access it, huh? So every time you would access this, if you try to change it, it logs everything you're doing and then kicks back an email. So we would have to ask this administration, why was it that this file was accessed and then amended? Why did someone try to remove the terrorism and deportation reference? Why did then somebody go back in and then try to destroy both the original and the amended versions to erase all of this? That seems like a Nixon-style cover-up, doesn't it? This event file seems to tell an entirely different story than when Napolitano and the DHS and this administration is trying to sell you, the American public. The original event file was reviewed and approved by 2 high-level agents. The Chief Watch Commander, Mainberg is his name, and the Watch Commander, Mayfield. These 2 guys. And let me show you the cover sheet. This is the cover sheet of the event file. It says here the subject, Al Harbi, it gives his date of birth. He's from, country of origin is Saudi Arabia. He is the holder of an F1. This is a, you can come in on the visa. The visa expires 11th of November 2016. And here's a really interesting thing. It says he's an exact match to the no-fly TPN, this number. Wait a minute. So this file is created and it says, oh, by the way, he's an exact match to this file over here, which puts him on the no-fly list. That's interesting. Derogatory information was reviewed. So in other words, you can't just call up. You have to have information. You have to have things, let's say you went to his apartment for 9 hours and collected evidence. Then you would present it. It was reviewed by these people, and it was found to be sufficient to request a visa revocation. They're requesting a revocation of this number. Subject is inadmissible to the United States under a 2123B. There it is. Terrorist marking. You cannot be here in the country. But it goes on to say, by the way, we never did any real homework on who this guy is. We didn't vet him. It wasn't complete when he came in. How did that happen? It says he came in Boston. Point of entry is Boston on this date. Subject is a student at the University of Findlay. Really? I thought he transferred. This is really interesting here. Subject has 1 prior event. Event number 1648067. Isn't that interesting? It says no record in place, no schedule found at this time. Wow. So he is a designated terrorist. Page 2 says he's armed and dangerous. And he has 1 prior event. This doesn't sound like some kid who just loves playing video games and basketball and is just trying to sort out his life and playing with his friends. Why is he already in the system? Why does he have a prior event? Why does this match another no-watch list? Who put him on the no-fly list? And then, are they separate? Why did they designate him as a 2123B terrorist activity, armed and dangerous? You see, the only ones that really have the answer, well, are some of our sources, but also the DHS. This administration knows. And for whatever reason, wonder what it could be, they're trying to cover it up. Why? Well, tonight I'll just give you some of my best guesses. But one thing you have to take away from this tonight is you have to learn a few things and get them right, and do not listen to anyone else that's telling you these things are absolutely crystal clear. First of all, this kid is a 2123B, an active terrorist, or poses an immediate terror threat. He was also armed and dangerous. He was not some kid at the wrong place at the wrong time. Given the highest level of terrorist designation the United States of America can give somebody. 2, he did not overstay his visa. He was given special status allowing him to come in without a complete vetting process. That doesn't happen. He also didn't go to school in Ohio. 3, they knew who he was as soon as they had his name. This is a very big deal. He was on a no-fly list. He already had an event status. So as soon as you would type his name in, his file would pop up. 4, the government and the administration is covering for him. They're covering up for some reason. My guess is that he comes from a very powerful clan. I mean, if you're going to have somebody from Saudi Arabia, if you're going to have the foreign minister show up and talk to the president, you better have powerful family. The White House knows. Because the last point is they are trying to cover up. Just like Nixon tried to cover up his lies, they're covering up. And they are in full damage control mode. And look what's happening. Remember, they initially said being deported because of a visa. It's expired. No, it's not. DHS is trying to cover their tracks just on that one. Now claiming that there's another Saudi national being deported for an expiring visa. Well, who is he? This event file was created on Tuesday at 4:35 p.m. But there's already something that was put right here. Another event file prior to the bombing. Shortly after searching, a lengthy search of his residence in Boston, that's when they went and they presented all this evidence. It was amended 24 hours later. Just after John Kerry met with the Saudi foreign minister, and just before Janet Napolitano appeared to answer the questions where she says, I'm not even going to answer that one, and I need a cigarette and maybe a pack of cool cigarettes and some Alka-Seltzer. Oh. Why was it amended just before she spoke? Why was it amended just after the Saudi foreign minister showed up, and just after, or just before, the Saudis show up again at the White House for another coincidental meeting? By the way, a couple of hours ago, the Blaze News had learned that the State Department this afternoon has issued an internal warning to all government employees. Anyone not directly involved with the Boston bombing investigation no longer has any access to any related files. We'll find out what that means in just a few minutes. The other news networks are not reporting this story. Hurry to watch them do nothing. They've stood down. Why? I can't say with certainty for all of them. I can say for some of them. But what we have learned is that DHS and other federal officials are aggressively contacting media outlets and advising them not to run with the story. I know for sure of at least 2 outlets that have veteran journalists that had this story ready to file it, and management killed it for some reason or another. Interestingly, we did catch this report by Brett Baer, which I thought was interesting, from Fox News. This is not him on his newscast. This is not his regular show. This is an online video blog. If you watch this segment, it's really something to see. Brett's a great guy, and I think you can see him, and when you listen to him, you're like, all he keeps saying over and over again, basically, if you will, are the talking points directly from DHS. Not a reporter. He is reporting what DHS is saying. He says, this is what they're telling us, about 500 times in the video. Well, that's not journalism. And I don't think he believes it. Why isn't it on the regular show? But then again, maybe. I know we have our facts right. One of the claims in the information was that the Fed had this event file. And that's just something that's auto-generated once you're on a no-fly list. Not true. Our sources actually laughed out loud on this claim. You don't get to be a 212 3B terror activity status, armed and dangerous, and an event file automatically. And they're like, nah, we're going to interview this guy. That doesn't happen. If it does, at best, it's just abuse of power. Look, this is really important. This is important for the future of our country. I believe, this is me now, I have no evidence of this other than circumstantial, but I believe that we have had Saudi Arabia infiltrate our organizations and our cities and our schools, and there are terror cells all over this country, and it has to be exposed. When I was at CNN, we did a show on Virginia, the schools over in Virginia, and the State Department called and pretty much threatened us, and we were shut down on that story. Not on my network. We're going to continue to follow this because after 9/11, we all asked, what did anybody know? What did the president know, and why didn't he do anything about it? Well, the answer for any future terrorist activity in this country is, when did anybody know? I don't know. Check the date. What's the date today? Because they know right now. And the answer for you, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, read Ezekiel. Blood will be on your hands as well if you don't credibly spread the news and warn the people. The answer for you and me is right now. We know. And this is what we promised ourselves we would do. If we ever found out, we would ring the warning bell. We would be vigilant, and we would watch. Last night, this program told you there were 75,000 students from hostile Muslim countries here on student visas. 75,000. Okay. What's the problem? Well, 15,000 of them have not shown up at their point of destination. 15,000 are here on student visas, and 15,000 have not shown up. Where are they? Remember, it only took 19 hijackers from Saudi Arabia on 9/11. And this doesn't even count the number of illegals that have crossed that are other than Mexican. This government is not only ignoring, they are aiding, abetting, they are lying and covering up. We still don't have an answer. We don't have an official answer as to where is this kid? Where is he now? I ask you to call your congressman again. There's additional information up on the Blaze. And so you know, we're not asking you to do something we haven't done. I asked for this letter to be drafted. It went out to every congressman in the U.S. today. This is a letter of accountability. Americans lost their lives, the Americans lost their limbs, and another American city has lost their innocence. This is our responsibility. I'm asking Congress, what are you doing? What is your office doing? How do you respond to this? We demand an answer. We'll keep a list of accountability of who said it was a conspiracy theory? Who said the Saudis have nothing to do with anything? Who said don't worry about all of that stuff? Who covered the tracks? The State Department is doing that right now. They are covering the tracks. It is our responsibility as a broadcast outlet, but also as citizens, to uncover the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and spread the word.